Hey everybody, happy Saturday. Outside again as the weather's permitting. It's a little windy, but I think we'll be okay. Kind of just that time of year where trees haven't all filled in yet, so the wind comes through a little bit more. As we do more and more videos, obviously we're going to run into some stuff that's a little redundant and some stuff that maybe was briefly covered in other videos. One of the things I see most often, you have to excuse the bugs, they're brutal. As soon as the weather warms up, can't be outside, can't have nice things. So one of the things that people are asking all the time is what are the best species of snake to start with? And it's not really a question that I'm overly fond of, because it kind of implies that you're getting an animal as a throwaway animal just to get some experience under your belt before moving into something else. Now, I don't necessarily think you need to go and invest, $5,000 in your first snake or anything. Good God, these bugs are awful. If I had a long extension cord, I would run a fan just so they couldn't be here. But I do think that, the best snake to start with is the one that is going to be something that you really want. And you put the research and time into. Good God. I don't know if you can see it or if I just look crazy, but there are bugs everywhere. So I brought this girl out to be in this video. Good God, I got like 20 of them in my hair. She seemed to be very popular on the last video that I did with her. This is one of my T-positive females, albino blood python. Obviously, she's my biggest T-positive female. Sorry, the bugs are so bad. This video is going to be terrible because of these bugs. That's nice. Just flop yourself down there. There you go. She's really an awesome snake, but I wanted to show off some of the size because while I do think that bloods can be an okay first snake for some people, you do have to be aware that eventually you might be dealing with, a sizable animal that's very powerful and very capable of causing a lot of havoc if they decide to. She's pretty docile, but if something were to spook her, she is a very powerful animal, and she could definitely do some damage. So, as I was saying, I think that the best animals for you are the ones that you do the research for and the ones that you're most interested in. Now, obviously, I don't think that venomous snakes or really large constrictors are going to be your best bet to start off with. But I do think that, even if it's green tree pythons or if it's, an emerald tree boa or something like that, if you put in the time and the effort and the research and you really, really, hit the pavement hard in that, they can make a rewarding first snake. You don't have to just stick to your, corn snakes or king snakes or, a spotted python or whatever it is that, people will tell you. A lot of people say ball pythons, and I think that's a mistake, just because they're probably one of the most fickle snakes out there as far as a lot of things. Yes, they're hardy and they'll live through really, really crappy care, which is unfortunate for them in some sense. So a lot of people get them and don't take proper care of them, and the snakes live, so they think they're doing okay. But it's hard to kill a ball python. You really have to try. I mean, really try. Like, not give the thing water for a month. Like, you really got to try. 99% of the time, anyway. So definitely do your research and look into it. I do think if you are one of those people that you really want something easy to start with, then a corn or a king really makes a lot of sense. They take to frozen thawed prey very easily. They're not typically pricky eaters. Their husbandry really is a wide range of conditions that they can tolerate, both in temperature, humidity, enclosure types. Obviously, corns and kings, there's none of them out there that's going to have a bite that's really going to hurt anybody, so you don't really have to worry about that. They tend to be fairly active, so people like animals that they get to see. And when I say fairly active, it doesn't mean they're not going to hide a lot, but it just means you will see them out more than some other species. So the biggest thing when you're deciding what you want to do as far as a snake, besides the research, is deciding what you want out of a relationship with that animal. Do you want something that's hands-off? Do you want something that's going to tolerate a lot of handling? Do you want something that's going to be very hardy? Something that's going to be diurnal versus nocturnal? Something that's going to be out a lot versus hiding a lot? So you want to take all those things into consideration, and instead of trying to mold that animal, whatever you get, into what you want, try to limit yourself to that pool of animals that's going to fit into what you want, and then you're going to have a better keeper-kept relationship because you're not putting the animal in a situation that it doesn't want to be in. You know, you're putting it in a situation that's more natural. Just anchored on the bench here. So like I said, you know, keep in mind, a lot of blood pythons don't get this big, but they can get this big. If this was your first snake and she was not calm, this would be a handful. This is something that could definitely hurt somebody, intimidate somebody, and cause you a lot of grief. So I like them. I think Sumatran shorttails are probably my single favorite species as far as just a home run for really any keeper, advanced to novice. They're pretty hardy as long as you set them up properly. They tolerate a lot. They have a very, very good appetite, so it's really hard to put those snakes off of food, which is good for a new keeper. You know, you're trying to build confidence. Every time that animal takes a meal, that feels good, as opposed to, you know, an animal that fasts a month here, 2 months there, 3 months there. That makes you feel like something's wrong, and typically it is in most cases. There are exceptions. I'm sorry about the bugs, they are so brutal. You have to figure with the wind they wouldn't be as bad as they are. But like I said, I figured I would use this girl because she's a good example of what these can become. They can get bigger than her too. Bloods once upon a time used to hit like 8 feet. I haven't seen one much larger than hers in a long time. I've seen 1 or 2 out there that are larger, but not by much. I've seen like 6'9", 6'10". I haven't seen a blood, you know, in the 8-foot range in many, many years. So that's one of those interesting things that, you know, you wonder, what are we doing in captivity that's changing that? Are they adapting to, you know, the smaller space, the food that we're feeding them, the frequency with what we're feeding them? You know, what is it about this environment that's changing it? Is it just simple as we're breeding them younger and smaller, and so they're adapting to that? A lot of questions. Obviously, you notice as I'm handling her, I'm not letting her get around my neck. This is a snake that is definitely large enough to give you a problem if she were to, and she were to get spooked. So always be mindful of that when you're handling larger. Hang on. I said the wind was pretty bad, I wasn't lying. Caught a good gust there. But yeah, you always want to be mindful of that, so that, you know, you don't get yourself into a situation, especially by yourself, where you could be in trouble. Other things to do when you're selecting new animals, I definitely suggest trying to get a relationship with an established breeder of the species you're looking for. Somebody that might even be willing to help mentor you on some level. Just going to make that whole experience a lot better. If you go and you buy from a wholesaler, or you buy from an auction, or you just get some cheap snake off of Craigslist, when you have questions, you're doomed. And the reality is there's a lot of people that'll help in social media groups and forums, but there's a lot of people that won't, and there's a lot of people that are giving you really bad advice, and that's a real big problem that I see all the time. You know, people are at a point where they've kept 1 or 2 examples of these animals, or they've bred 1 clutch or 2 clutches, and they're telling people how to do things. And it's nice to want to give advice, but you're not helping people at that point because you really don't have the knowledge. And if you give that advice to people and they take your advice and have a problem, you don't know how to fix it or how to help them fix it. So it's a very, very, you know, big responsibility to me, which I've said 100 times before, and I'll say it again. Giving advice is a lot of responsibility, and it should be something that you're very cautious with, and that if you're telling somebody to do something, you know that it's a really solid probability that it's going to help them and that it's not going to harm their animal. Because sometimes you can give advice that you think is good and has worked for you, and it might kill an animal somewhere else because maybe you didn't ask the right question, maybe they didn't give you the right detail about what's going on, and it's a different situation. So you definitely want to be careful with that. Don't be cavalier with that. I see too many people doing that. If you are taking advice from somebody, as I always recommend, make sure you know who you're getting your advice from. You know, make sure that they have the experience and the know-how, and that, you know, you're getting advice from somebody that's going to be solid and help you, you know, along as a keeper. And keep in mind the lifespan on these animals. An animal like her should live 25 years, maybe longer. We really don't even know their full lifespan on a lot of these species. especially in captivity, because we kept them wrong for so long. We've only been keeping them better, you know, in a few generations here. So there's not a whole lot of time. There's not a whole lot of base information that we have. So we're assuming most of these python species are going to live somewhere in that 20 to 30 range, but there's ball pythons out there that are over 50 years old. Over 40 years old and 30 years old is pretty common in that species. They seem to be very long-lived. There's definitely a lot of blood pythons and shorttails that are older, not that age group, but bugs, Jesus. But definitely in the 20s and you know, a little above that. My oldest shorttail right now is somewhere in the realm of 18 to 20 years old. We don't know her exact age, but around that age, still going strong. She's hateful. She's been hateful for a while. My oldest snake other than her would be my Burmese python, and he is probably somewhere in the realm of 17 or 18 years old as well. So you know, we really don't know, but obviously if you get up north of 20, you're probably doing stuff right most of the time, depending on the species. Any questions on this, I'm always willing to answer. I know, like I said, this video is a little bit redundant on some things that we've talked about, but I thought it was a good chance to get her outside, let you see her in some natural light, and a good chance to just kind of talk about some things and not looking for a snake that's not really what you want. That's just a temporary thing to give you experience. I just don't really think that's fair to the animal to get something you really don't want. Obviously, if your end game is like a reticulated python, you know, maybe start with something else first, of course. But there's also the option of going places if you have a chance, obviously not right now with everything going on, but if you have a chance to visit other people's collections and work with people that keep the animals or keep the species that you're interested in, that's a really good opportunity too. Because in some cases you might realize the workload and what's going on isn't something you're really willing to deal with. So if you're able to see that in advance and not get that animal and then be looking to rehome that animal, that's a huge win as well. Untangle her here. Just had about enough of sitting in my arm. She wants to get down and move around and check stuff out. So I will probably let her do that now. And we will see you guys on Tuesday. As always, if you want an idea on a tip video or something you want me to cover, just let me know. I still have some stickers available as well, so message me for those. I'll be sending some more out this week. A lot of people have gotten theirs or should be getting them in the next couple of days. So we will see you guys. Big Girl and I are out. Have a good weekend. Stay safe.